and not knowing what was going to go on with our adoption of a new code, and just because I had way too much going on. So in light of the new code being approved by the town, which is going to be enacted on January 1st, considering we have this application and maybe one other meeting in December, I thought that I would help out. I guess I could put it for the next two meetings. So that said, I'm technically not a chairman of this committee. So first order of business I would propose for the design review committee is to nominate a chairman and take a vote on that. Second, and then take a vote.
Okay.
I nominate Deb.
I nominate Catherine. We had sort of thought we might be co-chairs.
Yeah, we talked about it in our workshop and thought that maybe Deb could chair and then I could co-chair.
Betsy, Karen, what say you guys?
I'm good with that.
What? You're good with that? Okay. And Betsy? Betsy, do you have your voice?
There.
There you go.
I like the two co-chairs, Deb and Catherine.
It's not a matter of liking us. It's
I like the work you do.
okay. Okay, so.
Is there a second for the co-chairs? I'll second it.
Yeah, are we voting on this to be
Yeah.
co-chairs and
Yeah,
whatever?
we need to vote on it.
Okay, let's vote. Yes, no, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So the problem with co-chairs is who leads the way. So you guys
Well, I'll lead the way.
all right.
The first order of business, according to our documents that tell us what to do, is to welcome the applicants, the Williams, and a few helpers there, Anna and Scott.
Yep. It's nice to see you all again.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you very
And can you present your project, this part of your project?
Yes, we're going to ask Stephen Moore, who has, with Moore and Sheridan there in Portland, has done the site work, and we would like to turn it over to him, please.
Great.
Good evening. That's the Sheridan. I'm the Moore. Moore and Sheridan. Thank you. Tor's laughing. You know Tor. Thank you. Good evening. We appreciate the time tonight. I thought what I'd start with is just, rather than belabor all the details, because there was a lot of information in that package, that we just sort of hit those top overviews, and then turn it back to the group for you to ask us questions. But I think the piece that comes to us very simply is, I think a lot of the time people look at the architecture and they look at the registration and they focus on those objects because I think they're somewhat easy to understand. And the landscape is a much broader topic and sometimes harder to pin down because it is so ephemeral. And what we really brought to this and came to this and want to talk about with you this evening is that we stepped back and looked at the Kavanaugh House as that object, as that incredibly beautiful federal building. But in this setting, in this landscape that's surrounded by that little precious pit privy that dates to that time frame, those old historic walls, and that setting on the top of the hill. And so when we looked at this, we took it back to that period of significance when it really was the Kavanaugh's house sitting on the top of that hill looking down at the river in that rolling agricultural landscape with the mills nearby. And that was the perspective that we brought to it, focusing on that period of significance and then starting to build the history of this property with Scott's and Aaron's help, understanding building sequence and construction. As we said in that presentation, we identified in our material we submitted, we identified that lower barn as circa 1850, and then the upper barn, the carriage shed, is something later, 1860s. And as we looked at this and came to understand it, what we tried to do was look at what the Williams were looking for in terms of trying to get their uses fit onto the site, and try as we could to arrive at a plan that would keep that existing carriage shed where it was and in the form it was. The best information we had from the folks at Preservation and Timber was that, first of all, that original barn down below has great integrity in the original 1850 barn. And it was much smaller at the dimensions we showed on that plan. But the upper carriage shed is in much poorer condition, and really is in an assembly and pastiche of older frames and things that didn't make sense in terms of A, being able to try and keep it, or B, trying to find some adaptive reuse for it. And so our next task, as we looked at it, was to try and think about how do we leave that building there and put something back in its place and get our driveways and circulation up and around to it. And what we came back to again was grounding ourselves in that image of 1803 to 1849, that period of significance. There was no building there. The Kavanaugh House sat sort of boldly on the top of that knoll in a manner it should be in that federal style as presented, that gentleman's farmhouse on the hill. So in our end analysis, we came back and said, let's look at taking that existing carriage house down, creating a dooryard court and pushing that new garage structure to the back, because in that way we limited site disruption in terms of grading and cut and fill. We could really then rest on grades as we have them there, get a background building behind Kavanaugh, and allow us to lift that barn up. So the lower barn up and put a new building behind. So the real crux of the issue, back to you folks at the committee, are two. The thought about the lower barn, taking it back, removing the west porch and the north side, take those off and put that barn back to its original condition, circa 1850, 1855. Lift it up a little bit. We're lifting up 5 feet and managing those grades just through grading no walls, because we felt that was the more authentic response in terms of a period landscape treatment. But then removing that circa 1860 carriage building entirely because of the unusability of the frame, because of its awkward placement. And probably the biggest issue for us as landscape architects was that idea that we were freeing up Kavanaugh from a later encumbrance. So it really reads like Kavanaugh should read. Again, this is just the landscape architect's opinion. Sorry, everybody else, but that's purely that landscape architect's idea of looking at that historic landscape. And so that's the issue really before all of you, are those two components. The first thought of the lower barn and what we're doing there, that's sort of one whole set of actions and series that we feel really comfortable about. And then trying to get some guidance from you about what is the classification? What would you call that building? And are we on the right course to take that down and create a background building and leave that area as an open lawn, orchard, and parking court? So that's sort of the high points. What did I miss, Tanya, on that?
I think you covered the high points.
Yeah, I don't want to belabor this, because I think you must all have lots of questions and thoughts and responses, but that's really where we are. And Stephen, Nancy, or Anna, Aaron, and Scott, did I just trim the tops of the white caps on that so we don't beat down the poor committee members with all the details we've been carrying for 3 months?
No, thanks, Stephen. I think that got the good summary.
So I'll turn it back to the co-chairs.
That must mean you, Catherine. Um, So do the applicants have anything else to present? That's sort of what we're doing here, right?
It is. We're asking your committee to consider what we're proposing for the lower barn as one action, stripping off the later additions, go back to 1850,
Right.
and leave it in essentially the same position. We're going to be a few feet one way, a few feet the other way, and 5 feet up in the air. But it is essentially taking back that position, as we understand it, when that barn was built, 1850, 1855.
Right.
And then take down that other carriage shed, the one that's immediately adjacent. We will restore the pit privy,
Mhm,
so it'll sit right where it sat in 1803 and look like it looked in 1803.
mhm, mhm.
And that's really what we're looking for from all of you, to see if you agree with our thinking and that thought of taking down carriage gives you any heartburn, or it's acceptable based on what data we've submitted to you.
And then the rules say ask for public comment. Is there any public comment?
I like the new design for the carriage house. It mimics the doors. And if the one that's existing now can't be easily repaired, it makes sense to put up something new.
Okay, we're gonna talk about it in a second. We have to close public comment according to the rules. So do we agree to close public comment?
Agreed.
I agree. We can vote for that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Now we, the committee, get to discuss the application. So, Betsy, I'm sorry to have interrupted you. Say again.
Well, all the information that they put together is fantastic, really
Yeah.
helpful. And then to show what the new carriage house will look like, and the fact that you can still see it from Pond Road, but it'll be set back a bit further. I think that's all good. It looks, the carriage house looks good from a distance, but I'm sure when you get close and check out all the timbers and everything, it has serious problems. So I'm glad they're doing what they're doing.
And Karen or Catherine?
I don't see Karen up here anymore.
I'm here.
Hi, Karen.
Is.
I'm so new to this. I'm
That's
not sure exactly what I'm supposed to be doing at this point, other than, I have read everything over, and I don't know, do we have to determine something about the carriage house first?
Tor is,
Deb, if I got a couple of suggestions. You should we should classify the what type building the carriage house is, the existing one, A, B, or C. So typically that would be our first order of business. I'm wondering if the applicant wants to present any of the material that they gave us. You could do it one of two ways. Either I could share Zoom, or maybe somebody else could share Zoom, some of the materials, presentation materials. So, but I'll add this. Just one other comment on this is that I believe that this is a demolition of a historic structure predating 1900. The design review ordinance is clear about, based on the classification, what the procedures are for those, moving forward with that. So I think we need to abide by that.
Scott, I'm gonna take the lead because Tor, thank you. That's a great suggestion on how to direct this and back to the committee. Scott and Aaron, I'm going to take the lead on this a little bit and then have you back it up.
Okay.
In the documents we submitted, we described that existing carriage shed in some level of detail. I'm going to talk about it in the broadest sense and then have Scott and Aaron talk about it with some specificity. Its origins and original uses just aren't known. There's no documentation on it. There's no real hard and fast date or documents that we found about it. There's some mention in some early documentation about it possibly being a stable, but we just don't know the use. And when you go inside and you look at this thing in terms of its frame and its construction, it's clearly, to my eyes, and again, forgive me, preservation timber, but it's an amalgam of several different types of frames and forms. There's some 20th century stuff that's sort of added on and doesn't make a lot of sense. And so, to my eyes, the condition of the interior and the exterior is poor and beyond salvage. And I'm not sure that what we see on the exterior is anything that relates to that time of construction of 1860. I think things were added on. But with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Aaron and Scott to just delve into a little bit more of the detail that we put in writing from you in terms of condition of the structure, salvageability, and reuse, and historic value. I think that's, we just didn't see it as a building that had any kind of great, important, or significant historic meaning or structure, other than the fact that it was sitting next to this particular building. But Scott and Aaron, if you could provide some backup more specifically about what's really there and what it looks like to your eyes from that preservation timber framing perspective.
Yeah, I mean, Stephen, you touched on a lot of what the frame really consists of. It is kind of I think there's definitely 2, if not 3 different types of frames that have been recycled into this. Some of it is a little hard to determine if some of it is a later 20th century repair or whether it was part of the original build, but there definitely are, recycled members that have been recycled to the point where they didn't use some of the original mortises or anything like that. They created different mortises, different joinery. So you have posts that are structurally, in some ways, structurally unsound because they have 2 and 3 different types of generations of building within that post. The girt lines have been changed, the post heights have been altered, the plates have all been either repaired or rotten and repaired, with a lot of 20th century repairs that were not done that well. A third of the barn is on a CMU foundation that is, the rear wall is actually, pretty much kind of caved in. It's probably deflected a good 8, 10, or 12 inches pushed in. So that back wall is actually moving quite a bit because the joinery is not, cohesive enough to hold the frame together at this point. The whole building is just kind of shifting and moving around on what is really not a usable foundation. And like Stephen said, it's really kind of hard to determine what exactly the use of this building was. But for what we want to try to adapt it to something else right now, structurally, I just don't think it has the integrity to try and do that.
Just to amplify that a little bit, and we couldn't show this accurately on the drawings, there's this awkward little slope back shed on the north side that was added on sometime after the original frame was constructed, and now has merged itself over. They've locked that into that adjoining little pit privy. So we've lost the independence of that second building. So it really is. I think that was a great description, Scott. Thank you for that. And we just try as we might, back to the committee, we struggled on what to do that, which is on how to call that anything of significance other than the fact that it's a historic structure predating 1900. That's why we turned that back over to you on that carriage shed. I think the barn is much easier to understand because it is such an incredible frame and easier to understand. And we can see that and we can free it of those later encumbrances. But you've hit on the heart of the issue, Tor, which is we've struggled over this carriage, and if we could have found a way to use it, we would have. But that's the nature of the demolition request, and that's the nature of the request back to you. Is it C? Is it B? We need to lean on you to guide us through that.
I would only add, I mean, Scott knows every detail of that building and described it very well. On a larger scheme, we are a preservation company. And I've sat on the board of Maine Preservation, have been president 2 terms, kind of termed out. So getting rid of older buildings is not what we're about at all. I just want to be clear about that. We did look at this building very carefully. The issue that I have with this building is it hides the 1803 privy. In fact, jeopardizes it with its foundation as well as the connection and then back shed. You can actually see a really good picture of how close that carriage house is to the privy in one of the documents. The top picture actually shows that back shed. So my sense is that that was a conglomeration of earlier frames put up for mere convenience, probably in the 1920s and 30s, so you could get a Model A in there or something. I mean, I don't think the use was agricultural in any way. I don't think the use was anything but a convenience for being there in the summertime. It doesn't have any of the structural integrity or the architectural integrity of the barn or the main house, obviously. So I would just add, it wasn't a decision that we come to lightly, given our preservation background, but also use of space, adaptive reuse. Good preservation is more than just the buildings, it's how we use the buildings. So I think this plan really reflects how the Williams love and cherish this property and are going to use it in a really effective way, and retain the integrity of the property as well as the buildings. So that's why we came to the conclusion that that carriage house was expendable in the scheme of its history, this the way it was built and how it was placed on the landscape.
May I add? So I think, you know, this ordinance has 3 categories for significance of the structure. So unfortunately, it's just A, B, or C. It'd be nice if there was about 30 categories. So we got to remind ourselves what the context is of the rest of the town. So, you know, to say that this is a C building puts it in a category with 1950s ranches on Pleasant Street, some 1980s modular homes, you know, so there's that to consider. I think, you know, it predates 1900. I think that this is, I appreciate the, you know, the ideas of the, you know, the depreciated structure and all these issues, but I can't see this as a C building. I think it's a B. It may not be an A. I mean, I think A in this town has been categorized only, you know, I'm going to say less than 10 times. So I think that this, in my opinion, would be a B, also considering that it's next to what we just classified as an A structure, and that's on the National Historic Registry of Buildings. So That's what I have to say about that.
So is there anything one has to do about removing a building as design review people?
So, so the ordinance, I can call it up if we want to look at that.
I'm sort of looking.
Sorry, excuse me. So Tor, are you making a motion to classify that as B and then someone seconding and then discuss? So I'm just trying to be mindful of the minutes in the process.
Sure. I was making a comment. I don't know if there's anybody else on the committee that's got a point of view on this, but you know, I'm willing to move that it's a B classification. And then we can open it up for further discussion if there's a second.
Yeah, Class B, I think, is probably a good call.
I move that it be a Class B. Is there a second?
I second that.
So let me, before you vote on that, let me show you what the ordinance is here.
Class B.
Right, so item number 2 here, as part of the applicant's review, the design review committee will attempt to classify the appropriate age of the owner's building based on information submitted by the applicant in consultation with the Newcastle Historic Society and others source deemed appropriate by the committee as follows. Class A buildings existing in 1900, which have major architectural, historic, and or neighborhood significance. B, all buildings existing in 1900, which have architectural, historical, and neighborhood significance. And then item C is Class B. Class C is A or B not. So that's the 3 choices we have here. If we go down to demolition procedures,
It's 93. Okay.
So Class A buildings, Class B buildings, should the property owner want to demolish, remove the building or a pertinent structure, Class 5B, 4-month notice of proposed demolition or removal shall be given before a demolition or removal permit is issued. Owner of the affected building shall cause notice to be published in a newspaper of general circulation in the county of at least 3 times prior to demolition or removal. First notice shall be published no later than 15 days after the application for permit of demolition. Removal is filed, and a final notice shall be published 15 days prior to the date of demolition or removal. So that affords the town interest to basically come forward and say what people feel during this 4-month period. The committee may negotiate with the owner of property of the property with other properties in the effort to find a means for preserving the property. Such negotiations may include relocation to a new site, recommendation for historic easement, or inducements to interested third parties to purchase the property. And if on the basis of an archaeological site survey or other information, the committee determines that there is archaeological site on the parcel, it may limit the excavation of the building on the parcel to preserve or protect the site. It may approve a plan or conditions to provide appropriate evaluation, excavation, or protection of the site. So that's what Class B means in terms of this permit process here. So.
So all of us members, other than you, Tor, are sort of newbies to this concept. Does this mean we have to vote on this and have them wait 4 months and go through all this?
So what we, so here's the weird thing, here's the weird place we are at is, design review committee is not going to be in existence at the time that this is, I guess, comes to fruition 4 months from now. So there'll be nobody to review it. What we could do, I might recommend or suggest to the committee is that we take the classification of the B and then we accept the demolition delay process starting 4 months. We come back in December and we review the new design, review that, approve it, and then at the time that the demolition delay is realized after 4 months, then they can take it down and move forward.
So that will be 3 months after the December meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what we've done before is we've issued a demolition, proceed for demolition with delay, and then prior to, or on that meeting where we, where is the final meeting for, or at the end of the, say, 4 month or 6 month period, the committee reviews the design, approves the design, so that when the demolition is started, they have a design in place. But like I said, we won't be in existence at that point in time. So the other option the applicant has is to withdraw the permit and then wait until January 1st and then proceed with the new code. And that process is a little different, but it doesn't involve the design review committee. Generally, that process is a 90-day waiting period. It gets approved by the code officer, enforcement officer. They need to get a letter from Maine Historic Preservation Commission that says that they're aware of the demolition procedure, that there's no, basically the letter from the Maine Historic Preservation Committee would say there's no chance that it would be considered for the National Registry of Historic Buildings, and no significance to this structure. And then basically that would be a letter submitted back to the code officer, and then demolition would take place after 90 days.
And when are you all were you planning to demolish this building?
I mean, we were, going through the process to see, we didn't have a set time on demolition per se. We were kind of going, like I said, through this review process to see where we came. We do have, in the bigger picture, some, other projects, we were here for the L remodel and stuff like that. They don't necessarily go hand in hand, but the two of them could work together. Yeah, like so we didn't really have a date or a time for demolition per se.
Well, it sounds as if we go under the existing code, you'd be able to demolish it in February, I think.
Well, 90 days, so 3 months.
3 months.
March, yeah.
No, that's with the new code.
Right, but they can't make application until the new code is enacted on January 1st. So that would be 90 days from January 1st, which would be March.
I thought you said we could
March
approve
30th.
it next month. And then it would be 3 months under the existing code.
Yeah, 4 months under the existing code.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it doesn't really matter which way we do it.
If I could have a point of clarification, while I absolutely agree that it is not a Class A building, the Carriage House is definitely nothing like the Kavanaugh House. And I feel really bad that Class C exists in anywhere, especially Newcastle, as modulars and stuff like that are just not worthy of living in, and a lot of times it's just a terrible way to live. The only thing in Class B that I see is that it's after 1900. The others really don't apply. If you look at the documentation, it's not particularly architecturally historical. It's not structurally sound. And so, you can name it Class B, but you could also name it Class C. The only real feature in Class B is that it existed before 1900. A lot of things existed, at 1900. I'm just saying, I would like you to consider as a committee, because I have a lot of respect for the Design Review Committee. I hate the fact that it's going away, quite honestly, because there's nothing like a local ordinance and a local review to really think about how things are done in a town, So I'm really sorry that that's happening, but I don't see that giving us a 4-month delay or a 3-month delay under a new system changes a lot. The reason we came to the Design Review Committee tonight was to ask your permission to move forward with the demolition of an architecturally insignificant, structurally unsound building so that we can continue doing the good work that we're doing on the Class A building, on the Class A L, and on the Class A barn. So I would encourage the committee to really consider those things, as we're doing our best here, and we have thought a lot about this, and I know you guys think about it a lot as well. So I would prefer to have your permission as a Design Review Committee tonight about this, rather than delay it further. That's my own personal opinion. I would respect any decision that you make, but I think it's an opportunity here to do really good preservation. And I'm, again, really sorry that the Design Review Committee has been disbanded, for lack of a better word. But I don't think it's not the same issue. The issue tonight before you is fairly straightforward, in my opinion.
I have to say, as the newest member here, I'm trying not to really jump in too much because I don't have a lot of background, but you brought up the exact points I was going to bring up about just because something was built before 1900 doesn't automatically make you have to put it in a Class B, because I was going to be curious, what is the architectural, historical, or I'm trying to get back to my thing, or neighborhood significance. I mean, maybe it does have it. I don't know. And since I'm not familiar, maybe it needs to be explained to me, but I think that's a funky looking building. And I've always, as I walked by it, been kind of disturbed with how close it is to the house. So, that's just my personal feeling as I've gone by it. It detracts from the house. And I don't really like the roof shape of it. So, I don't know. I mean, maybe you can explain it to me, because I don't know what would preclude us from categorizing something as Class C just because it was built before 1900. Am I missing something about the building?
Or you're on.
So I agree. It's kind of it's an awkward looking building. But it is part of the vernacular of that site. And it's something that I think the people of Newcastle are used to. And I think everybody recognizes the Kavanaugh Mansion as a historic building. And I guess, not that I haven't taken any exception, I think the design that Moore Sarandon has presented is beautiful. I think the proposed replacement, I think, will look beautiful there. I'm looking at it in the context of how this is, the reason why we have demolition delay is so that the people in the community are aware of what's going on when there's a historic structure, and it may not be, precious structure, but it is part of the historic fabric of the Demascata Mills. So there's a building right next door, the Connie Curley House, which about 6 years ago was presented for demolition, and it was a highly contentious issue. At that point in time, I think what was odd in just that process, or what's different in that process than what we have now, is that we can't have open public meetings. So that was a process that allowed people to come to a community room and hear what was going on, and your neighbors were allowed to come and voice opinion. Here we're in a meeting with 10 people, and the community is not going to know what's going on until that building's gone. So I think just in terms of why we have demolition delay in a code is to let people be aware, and so that when it is demolished, you can say, as the owner, well, you had a chance. This was notified. You knew what was going on, and this was approved by the town for demolition. So.
Well, if we do know anything, we know people don't like change. So I mean, I can see how that would be beneficial.
Last week, there was a good article about the work you're doing on the Kavanaugh House. And I wonder if a picture could be taken of the carriage house and an explanation of what's wrong with it, and the plan to put a new building behind that mimics that carriage house. Something like that might let the public know. They wouldn't have any say in it, certainly, but at least they would know. I don't know if that would do any good.
I'll just add this, that, and this really isn't about the architecture or the comment. I think that, or the design that's proposed. I think that this project has got a lot of goodwill and a lot of positive sort of press. People are very interested in what's going on here. I think there could be arguments by some people in the community to say, why didn't the town press demolition delay on this? Because not knowing about the structural issues inside of the building, they might look at it and think that it was historically significant. And I think for that reason, it might be a good idea to at least let this wait 4 months before you take it down.
Tor, if I could just ask a question, because I got a little confused at one point with the changeover in the two new rules, and you're probably the foremost expert on that right now during the transition. But if we waited till January 1 and then whatever time till the first hearing, and then we understand there's the 90-day clock that runs there, assuming that the Maine Historical Preservation Commission has been consulted or whatever. So just rule of thumb, that would put us somewhere in early March when we would be able to demolish it, if we go that route. Under the existing 4-month, I mean, the quick math on that would be from today would get us to early February. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Is that right? November, December, January,
March.
February.
Yes, early March.
End of February,
First week of
early March. Early March.
So I think sorry, Steve, just to clarify, if you go with this ordinance, it'd be beginning of March. With the new code, it would be end of March.
Okay. And then also another question, if the purpose of the notification to the town, I believe we understand that correctly, but if we, what are the possible outcomes there? I mean, if someone wants the building and wants to take it somewhere else, that would, be, I don't think that would be a problem. But I mean, can citizens, bar the demolition permanently, or it's just I was just curious what some of the outcomes are for the delay during the delay period.
Catherine's been trying to say something.
Well, so I actually talked to the Maine Historic Preservation Commission this afternoon. I call them all the time because, we have a 1795 federal house that we've been renovating, and I always call them for various, resources on our house and other things. So I called today because I was, when I was looking at the drawings for the new carriage house and the new barn, I had some questions about windows and, how they coordinate with the main house and all of that. I think that giving them a call might be the best first step. They don't involve themselves in a project. They have to be asked to be involved, but I just think that it would solve a lot of things. One is if you just consulted with them about the current carriage house and the issues that it has in its condition, and then the proposal for the new carriage house. I think going forward with possible demolition and then building this, if you have the approval of the Maine Historic Preservation Commission, which I have no doubt you would, because they are so eager to work with property owners and contractors that are involved in historic properties, I think that, letting the public know that that the Maine Historic Preservation Commission has been consulted, and that you have this government agency that is truly interested in protecting our heritage, our historic properties in Maine. I think that would really help with public opinion on what you choose to do. So I don't know, I think that it's such an easy step to just give Christy or Kirk a call and just give them the rundown of what you're doing. And then having that, if you publish an article talking about the plans, citing your involvement and your coordination with Maine Historic, I think would probably calm the nerves of the public that might have any concern about something going on that, they fear shouldn't, or I don't know, that's my opinion.
Good suggestions.
Back to the committee, both Scott and I have had conversations with Maine Historic around this very issue to try and ascertain their thoughts and opinions about period of significance, the Kavanaugh House itself, this particular structure, and the lower barn. I don't want to forget about the small barn. And what's interesting is they understand that it wasn't extant in the period of significance. They understand that it's a failing structure. And I believe, Scott, Mike said that he was going to swing by later in November and take a peek at it, because I'm going to go way out on the limb here. Sorry, Aaron and Scott. There's some sense that some of that exterior trim was applied in the 20th century to make it look federal. and isn't authentic. I don't know if Preservation Timber has looked at that, but there's some thinking about that. So we have reached out to Maine Historic. We've had a couple of discussions. We shared, as we map these, we look at little period plans. And so we develop little period site plans that communicate what that property looked like when it was nominated, when it was nominated on the register for the period 1803 to 1849. And so we understood that, and we've had those discussions. And so that's, we've had that, but we don't have a conclusion from Maine Historic regarding that building because they want to get some more details. And I think that's why Mike's coming back. Or that's why Mike's coming down when he's in Damascotta for something else. He's going to swing by this. Did I get that right, Scott? I think I did.
Yes,
Yep.
that's correct. Yeah, he had mentioned to Aaron that he would be down in the Damascotta area towards the end of November, and would and would like to actually come by. We'd love to have him come by the property and see, what we're doing, and with all the buildings.
So
Yeah,
that's Maine, you're talking about Maine preservation,
No,
not,
Maine Historic, the Preservation Commission.
oh, you're talking
Maine,
about,
Yeah.
Maine Historic Preservation Commission. Yep.
that's what you're talking about, okay.
So it's Kirk, it's Mike, it's Christy, it's the folks in Augusta.
Oh, okay. Because yeah, when I was talking to Christy, she wasn't familiar with it, so yeah, I don't know. So she must not be in that loop, but I don't know. It seems like such a good way to assure the public that the Kavanaugh Mansion is all the checks are being, all the boxes are being checked off in due diligence. I think that I don't know. It seems like it might prevent some problems down the road with people maybe thinking that it was not thought through enough or whatever. I don't know. It just seems like it might help in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that Mike Johnson and I have talked at length about the Kavanaugh House. I'm the one that invited him down to come and see it. He did mention that he was surprised that the design review committee was being disbanded, that the commission was not in a position to rule on every single historic property in the state and every town. So that's still going to fall to you guys at some point, I hope in the future again. Mike will be coming down and we will show him the carriage house, and he will agree with what we have found about it that we've shared with you. I just the inevitability of making this change is certainly true, and the demolition delay, I'm a huge proponent for demolition delay. There are so many buildings that get wrecked in towns unlike Newcastle, where there is no demolition delay all across New England, and stuff is lost immediately, just gone before anyone knows. I object to that as much as you do. But what we're talking about is an inevitability of the demolition permit on this, in my opinion. Whether we go to the commission and review it again, or we land here tonight, the carriage house is going to be able to be demolished. I just want to be clear about that.
So, Aaron, just going back to that and Steve's question before we had this last part of the discussion here, and I think the question was, what can happen during the delay or the 4-month period, and so I guess it's who knows. I think what could happen is well, let's talk about the intent maybe of that that procedure and that timeline. The ordinance does mention the idea that somebody can negotiate with the owners to purchase the building. They can ask to move it. They would be responsible to move it. So there's that. And can somebody sort of put a stop to it? Well, no, I mean, they would have to, their opinion would be considered by the committee, I guess. They would, that opinion, might sway committee members to vote that it can't be demolished after the period of time. I guess, what's likely? I don't know. I mean, maybe somebody saw what the integrity of the structure was and they said, this isn't really worth my time to move it somewhere. So, there's no value in this. So, that's probably, that might be, whether somebody would come forward or not, like on the Connie Curley house next door. I don't think anybody said, can I buy it from you and move it? It wasn't about that. It was about losing a component of the mills that people are used to seeing is what it was. So that's really what it was.
Yeah.
I guess I have a question then back. Given the concerns about the carriage house and that classification as a B, I think we as a team need to sort of regroup on that, Steve and Nancy, and figure that out. So the question back to the committee then would be this. Are you in a position where you can act on the little barn, the plan for the little barn tonight, which is to lift it up, put it on that foundation, strip away the later additions, and keep that circa 1850 building, and we'll go through the restoration process with that. Let us split this, table that carriage barn discussion. Let us go back as a group, try and reconvene. Let's get some of that input from MHPC, and then figure out how best to move forward with you or how to default and go to MHPC. Is the committee comfortable with that as a decision? Moving forward with a split decision, if you will?
So that, the little barn, that's the sketches that Stoneboat did. Is that the,
Yes.
yeah. I mean, the way, am I seeing that? It's more of a, it's not really changing the outside structure, right? It's more of a restoration kind of.
Yeah, there are two shed roof buildings that were attached to the original barn. One on the north eave and one on the west gable.
Yeah.
We're proposing that both of those go away.
Yeah.
The barn is structurally in a cohesive frame that we're not looking to dismantle it or anything like that. We'll be able to lift that up and slide that barn out of the way in order to change the grade and pour a new foundation and put that barn right back in its location. Part of the difficulty, there's no drainage, the driveway pitches, everything flows basically right through the eave door. All the water comes right down through there. It's not really even on a foundation. It's on kind of some wooden piers that are kind of holding up most of the north and west corners of the barn itself. The east corners are basically earthbound at this point. So that's, that is kind of what the proposal for the smaller barn is just to kind of strip away those new 20th century sheds, lift it up, slide it out of the way, and then we'll put down a proper foundation.
And Scott, it looks like you changed, you add some transom lights and then change a door to a window on the front facade. Is that what you did?
A few facade things. Right now, the exterior skin of the barn is the sheathing of the barn. They basically just sheathed it and painted it. So we would want to change a few of those exterior things like that, just to, just so that the exterior skin is in its original sheathing.
So, if I can just keep talking here, I'm sorry. The new code, if you want me to share that with you for a minute, you can see the language in the new code. So here's that. Demolition of historic assets. So down here at procedure, applicability, provisions of the code. I'm not going to read this verbatim, but applicability is all structures existing before 1900, sites with known or suspected historic, prehistoric settlement predating 1900. So that's a little bit more specific to anything predating 1900. So procedure down here, demolition. So here's the 90 day point here from the time that applicant sends a letter of request to the MHPC. The authority is the code enforcement officer here, so that's different. It's not a committee, so you meet with Ken Vinyl, you say he's the code officer, and say I'd like to apply for demolition of this structure. That would require you to prompt the Christie or somebody up at NHPC to give you a letter. I think that could even be an email that says that they're aware of this structure, but some kind of confirmation in writing. And then over here, what it's asking for is if it's eligible to be on the National Historic Registry of Places and it's accepted, then basically it's not permitted to be demolished. And that's pretty specific here. Structure is eligible for national, let's see here. There should be a structure. The structure doesn't need to be eligible. No demolition is permitted here. So this is item 3. Any structure existing before 1900, advertise availability for free offering. So this is advertising that somebody can take it if they want to, if it's deemed eligible, and during the 90-day period, the Historic Society can document the structure. So, so this is a little bit more, I guess, it doesn't require a committee, but there is engagement with the Maine Historic Preservation Committee on this. So if Christie says, you know, it's not really a value, it's not something that would be eligible for the registry. They think demolition is not is acceptable. Then basically after 90 days, you can just go ahead and demolish it. So that's the difference.
So can we vote on the new structure and get that covered or not?
Sure. So, Deb, I think that, so there's a second on the floor for a B. So what we have to do is, I think at this point, if you want to close the comment period, the discussion period, take a vote on that. Either it's yay or nay, majority rules, and then we can move forward with other.
For both the barn raising up and preservation of the barn and the new building design?
Well, I think that would be another motion. So we need to, I think we need to close the motion that we have on the table.
Close the barn.
No, we have to close the motion for Class B.
Oh,
Yeah.
We had a motion and a second for Class B.
or why don't you just do it?
Okay. So
Can I ask a clarifying question? Is the motion in relation to only the carriage house or both the lower barn and the carriage house as classified as B? I'm not clear on that.
I'm sorry. What was that question?
I'm sorry, this is Harriet trying to take the
Oh.
minutes. So I just want to make sure the motion on the table in regard to whether it's a Class B or not. I'm understanding from the beginning that it was solely in relation to the carriage house, not in consideration of the lower barn as well. That was my understanding of the initial
That was
motion. Is that
correct. That's the
correct?
way I understood it, Harriet. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
May I interrupt to the chair though, before you take a vote on this? I think Nancy and Steve, I think we should withdraw that piece of the application related to the carriage house, because we just need to reconsider this. In light of what we've heard this evening, I think we need to reconsider that. I really do. And I'm looking to you as Steve and Nancy to say, I think back to the committee, we need some time to evaluate what those paths forward are. So I think it would be a mistake to have the committee vote on this evening with respect to classification of the building.
Yeah,
We agree with that.
yeah, we concur with that. And of course, it's up to the committee, but if we've tabled, or since we've tabled the discussion of the carriage house, then the classification is somewhat irrelevant at this point then. Would that be a fair statement?
I was just trying to get that clear on the record, Steve. Yep.
So then I'm just wondering, moving forward with the carriage house, is your plan to reach out to Maine Historic Preservation Commission, have them give their input on it, whether it's, something that can be demolished, and then return to it?
I think that's exactly
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because Maine Historic Preservation Commission, I mean, it's what's great about them is that, and I think that should be known to all historic home owners and craftsmen that work on historic homes, is that you can call them with any question. They can't tell you no, they can't prevent you from doing it. So no one should have any fear about reaching out to them and getting as much information as possible, because all it does is it provides better guidance and a clearer path forward. So I just feel like in regards to the carriage house, I think it might be a good idea to just have them give some input, and then you have this third party weighing in, and it just seems like it would make things a lot easier for everyone.
Yeah, yes, certainly. That seems logical. What we were, and we didn't mean to get bogged down in the parliamentary part of it, but if there was a way, or if there's a need still, since we're not, I don't think it would be considered a demolition. What we're going to do to the little barn, just those two little wings, if you're familiar with those or see those were clearly added, at some much later time, and they certainly don't enhance the structure. In fact, if anything, they're maybe jeopardizing it. But if we need design review committee approval to go ahead and do that, if we can get that today, I believe that was what we were trying to communicate.
Right.
So I think that's fine. I think we just got to figure out where we are with the carriage house. We kind of went down this path, but I think that's acceptable to return and make a determination about that tonight. I think. Go ahead.
I just wanted, before we stop talking about the carriage house and put that aside, this is just something that I had a question about. I know we're not going forward with talking about the design, but I was just wondering, I was looking at the design, and I'm just wondering, do the lights in the doors, are the panes the same size as the panes that you have in the 9/6 double hung windows? Or are the double hung panes much smaller? I noticed that the Kavanaugh house has 6/6. They're pretty large pane windows because they're large windows. And that's what actually I was calling Christy about, was to see, typically, do you try and match the size of the window panes and your barn windows to your house? she didn't think necessarily that you did, but anyway, I was just wondering, do the panes in in these 9/6 windows, are they much smaller than the panes in the door?
So that's a great question. And I wish I had a little more information for you on that, so that I have sort of two-phase answer. So yes, I've always been told, and I don't think it's a hard rule, but I have been told that you should match pane sizes on a house on that structure. Yeah. However, on a separate building, they're at different depths, different, just standing in different points. And so that's not as critical. Okay. In regards to whether the door panes and the window panes are the same, yeah. This is actually just a very rough preliminary hand drawing. Yeah. And it's just right now, this is the direction we want to take, but it's not anything in CAD where I've fine-tuned any of the details.
Oh, okay. All right.
But this is definitely the essence and the look we're looking for. It's exact on the proportions, things like that. But pane size, I can't fine-tune those for an answer. Okay.
So can I just return to Steve Moore's question about the, I guess with the idea of sort of retracting or withdrawing the idea of the demolition of the carriage house. Is the thought process that you wouldn't demolish it at all, or you're just trying to figure out the best path forward? And the reason why I ask that is because either way, you're going to have to go through a demolition delay. I can't say that. If it's Class B, there's a demolition delay if the committee votes on that. If it moves forward to January 1st, there's definitely demolition delay in the 90-day. That would be the 90-day period would kick in. The only difference is you'd still have to advertise it twice a month in the newspaper. The big difference is there wouldn't be a committee making the review. It would be done at the code officer's desk, but you would have to get some kind of documentation, a letter, or some kind of note from the Historic Preservation Commission to say, qualify it regarding the other, the other criteria in the new code. So I just want to point that out. I think.
No, we understand that, Tor. Yeah. I think that's why I was looking at Nancy and Steve. Mm-hmm. Thank you for the Zoom call, by the way. That it really does. It gives us a chance to regroup and make sure we got the right path forward. Okay. That's all we're doing. Whether it's one or the other, that's what we have to worry about. And the last thing that Steve and Nancy are going to do, I can speak for them right here, is diminish any goodwill that they've earned with what they're doing. So we need that chance to make sure we're making the right step forward.
So here's maybe an answer to that option would be to come back in December for December meeting. If you choose to go forward with under this ordinance and file for demolition, I think the committee could make a determination for demolition at that point in time, and then review the new design, perhaps approve that at the same time. So then you're just waiting for that delay. So there is that. If you want to go away and come back, that would be the timeline is December. But that would be the last chance to get it.
Right, and I think that's one of those decision trees that we're going to pull on. Yeah. I bet tomorrow. But the other thing, Tor, that is running through my mind, and Aaron, you know this, we're not going to get Mike or Kirk down here on short notice. We're going to get them to dovetail in against what they're doing in Damariscotta. Yeah. So I kind of, back to the committee, we need that. We can have all the discussions we want face to face and over the phone with Maine Historic, but we're only going to really benefit from them, from that on-site. So that on-site with them doesn't give us our lead time to get our documents back into you. So that's our problem, not your problem. So we need to unravel all of that. If the committee understands me on that, yeah. We have to submit well in advance. Forgive me, it was 2 weeks or something. Sorry, but I'm not sure we can get them down here. So let us unpack all that mystery, and then figure out that path forward.
So then should we move on to the, just the lower barn and talk about the plans for that?
If we could, that would be, I think, where we would not head. Aaron's shaking his head, yes. So Scott, so Sandra.
It's a great thing about Zoom. You can do that.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm shaking my head. Yes.
So
Thank you.
I have a question. So in the barn drawing, the transom light it's 3 windows with 2 rows of panes. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that and why you didn't want to do like just a single row or more of the classic transom or maybe like a 2-row. I know, you know, there are going to be new windows, but I'm just wondering, it just stands out to me as, you know, not really a period detail. So I was just wondering about that. Plus the panes are going to be really tiny in that layout.
So once again, it's a preliminary sketch that hasn't been fine-tuned. Quick answer is that it's an aesthetic thing, but I also, in the back of my mind, I know that transom windows, you can only go so wide. I think we have restrictions after, is it 7 feet that you can't really get units, so you have to break it down. There's a certain amount of space above the doors there that the beams will allow for me to sneak some windows in there. Generally 3, the number 3 is more artistic than 2 or even 1. And I just think it's really quite attractive how it is.
We don't have access, Anna. Does somebody have access to pull that drawing up so the whole group can see it? Or does everybody else? I have it here, but
I can share it here.
Yeah.
okay, as long as everybody has it, that's all I cared about. We have it here on our dining room table. Thank you. Whoever did, thank you.
Yeah, can you see that? Yeah.
No, I had it here. I just want to make sure all the committee members could see.
Yeah. I think it looks good to me. I guess the transom windows, I don't know. I guess I'm not hung up on that, Catherine, but that's just me.
It's just, I mean, it won't be a period detail. It'll definitely be, more of a modern detail. Which, I'm not saying that that's good or bad, but it's just something to consider that it is sort of more of a modern layout for a transom. If the aim of the barn renovation is to, make it look like, its original state, I think that the transom lights will kind of give it away.
I think it's one of those things where it's an initial sketch, and if it's something as simple as the transom windows are going to stop the whole approval of the barn, I mean, we can eliminate them. That's not really an issue. It's just sort of the first pass at providing a sketch for the board to get a general idea. You'll notice that the program inside has stayed exactly how it is. The tap room is how it is, things like that. The man door has moved more for the general sense of the ease of moving throughout your path throughout the site itself. I don't know, I think the barn doors are quite attractive. And so I don't know, I would say let's not get hung up on the transom too much because that can be changed. It's an easy thing. It's just a hand sketch. So it can just as easily be eliminated, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Anna, I don't think you could probably get that in like a standard window, but you could probably get that transom in a custom span. So I'm not sure what you're doing for windows in this structure, but the only other thing I'd add is if this gets voted on tonight, if that's your intent is to have this approved, then this is what's expected to be built. So, if you want to revise this, I mean, we can, in the past, we've made sort of conditions like, the triple transom becomes a single transom or something to that effect. But, I guess the point of this drawing is that this becomes the documented file for, that goes in the town file cabinet. So just want to point that out.
And so the alternative, if it wanted to be changed, is to actually come back at the December meeting, or just to say that we'd like it to be one row of larger windows instead of the top and bottom.
I mean, isn't it, and what I've learned with my interest in historic preservation is usually transom and side lights, the panes match the other panes that are in the windows. That's what we were told by our period craftsmen. When we did our side lights, it's just one of those rule of thumbs, period speaking, where the panes are consistent, but consistently the same size throughout the building. So I don't know. It's one of those things that I noticed, but it's not. I just. It's preference, I guess. If but that I don't know. As someone who has dealt with lots of old windows in our house, that's the rule of thumb that I've always been going by, that especially on the facade when it's so visible, and especially when you'll be able to see the house facade along with the facade of the barn. Sometimes things like that, when they're unique and more of a modern take, they draw more attention to them, to that one detail, rather than if it's just something that is more of a period design, you just don't even notice it. So I don't know.
Is there a window authority to check with for old places, old houses?
Well, Christy at Maine Historic Preservation would definitely, I asked her about, I don't think I asked her about the transom lights specifically. I was asking her about sort of if there's a rule of thumb in coordinating, windows style, the style of the window in the main house with the outbuildings. And she said no, that it's very common, as Anna said, that there's variation because they're different structures.
Anna, I think this is a little bit akin to, I think we should probably go regroup with Steve and Nancy and just have this discussion. I hate to commit to something that we're not all on the same page. So I think, I'm sorry to have spent this time with the committee on an evening, but I think we're in a position to withdraw. Steve and Nancy, if you agree, I think, this is Stephen Moore speaking, we should just withdraw the application, regroup, get this right, and then be able to come back in with something that we know we can move forward with, and have the committee just focus on this. And if we have carriage straightened out, we have carriage straightened out at the December meeting. That's what I think. One of the benefits of these Zoom meetings is you get real-time diagnostics on what's going on. So does that make sense to you, Stephen A? So let's just withdraw this, and I'll apologize for taking up the committee's time with us not being clear enough in terms of getting our pieces in place to make these decisions.
Yes, by all means, and Nancy and I had a chance to sidebar here. We would like to withdraw the entire application, and we will come back, do a little more research, and proceed as best we can later. Thank you
so
Sorry
much
for
for your
all your
time.
time, though.
Yeah,
No,
thank
I
you.
really appreciate all you work you've done and all the, efforts you've made. And I think you're doing a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Great, it is. It's very-
Kudos to Steve and Nancy.
Yeah.
Well, you all are.
And I just want to say, we get paid a lot of money by the hour to be here tonight. So, it's just more money in our pockets. 0 times 3 hours is still a lot of money.
So happy to make you happy, Tor. Your ex-retirement chair position. Great.
I think I would just say, if you want to withdraw it, that's one thing. If you want to, we could just table it. I would say you could put it on the table and come back in December. So it's up to you. I think, you can come back with revised drawings, or you could withdraw it, 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, but at least you'd be on the agenda for December.
Okay, I see the differentiation or the difference there, Tor, unless Stephen or Scott has a different thought, or Anna, we would officially table it then.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's fine. Yeah. Either way, we just need to regroup.
And meanwhile, I don't think it makes any difference right now because you're going to rethink it all. But I sort of agree with Catherine about having single lights instead of the double row, just
Okay.
to make it more cohesive.
Duly noted.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
We need someone on the board to make a motion at the table. Sorry. It's my Robert's Rules of Order thing. Sorry, I didn't step on your toes, did I, Tor?
I'll move in wake of Steve's comment that we table this until December.
I'll second.
Yeah.
So can we have a vote?
If we can.
All in favor?
All
Yes.
in favor? Okay. Thank you for all the information too, the plans and everything. That's fantastic.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, on the flip side, thank you guys for the applicant and the contractor and the designers for your time tonight. So we appreciate that you taking your time with this process. So
Thank you. That's kind.
Thank you.
Happy to.
All right.
have a good night,
Thank you.
all.
And wait, our puppy only barked once.
Good.
Can you show the puppy? Yeah, show the puppy. Come on, little puppy cuteness.
Pick her up. She's sleeping.
She was asleep.
Oh.
Thank you for asking.
That's great.
You made his evening, you know.
Exactly.
That's great.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
All right.
All right,
Thanks.
thanks,
Good
all.
night, everyone.
Everybody stay healthy.
Take care.
Stay
Thank
healthy.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
So committee members this is Harriet. We're going to please review the minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. Did we lose some people? We lost
We're all
Tor.
here.
We lost Tor.
We lost Tor. Well, I think you have enough of a quorum. If you would entertain that at all, that would be much appreciated. So I can't run the meeting.
Oh,
Can we review the minutes?
They were sent to you with the initial materials. Maybe that'll have to wait till December.
Let's wait until December.
Okay.
Then we'll get Tor to run the meeting so that it goes smoothly.
You did fine, Deb. You and Catherine were good.
Uh-oh, you're not talking, Catherine, you're not
There, I
talking.
just unmuted her and I can't hear Karen. There we go.
Can I feel bad about the transom lights, and I hope that I didn't make everyone really mad, but I mean, this is a very historic property in Newcastle, and that is not a historic detail. And so it's so small, like why make it stand out?
I don't think there are existing ones already. I don't think there's any transom lights on the existing barn.
Yeah, I think transom lights would be great. I think they would be great, but there is no period building that has transom lights that look like that. They don't come in 3 separate window frames. They are in one frame.
Yeah.
And they either have 2 rows or 1 row. And I felt like maybe I offended Anna, but this is why we're here, isn't it? I mean, the design review is about little nitty-gritty details, especially on historic buildings and especially on one of our most valuable historic properties in Newcastle. So I feel really bad. I didn't mean to like bomb the whole thing, but I also feel like it was, I mean, it's not like it faced the lake, it faces the road. So, and it, you'll see it with the historic house. And so, I don't know, I feel like maybe I offended Anna.
So I just want to make sure, sorry, excuse me, this is Harriet. We are still live streaming on YouTube and the meeting has not been adjourned. So I would like for you to all consider what course you'd like to take with the remaining part of this meeting.
Okay. So we're not going to approve the minutes.
No.
Until December.
So
if you want to adjourn or something like that, I still will need someone to make a motion to do that, and then
I make a motion that we adjourn.
I second that. Sorry, there's a delay.
Thank you so much, everyone. I wish you could see my face. I'm smiling too. I'll get this camera fixed on this thing sometime.
Thank you, Harriet.
Well, thank you one and all.
Good night, Harriet.
Good night.
Deb, can you call me?
I'll call you.
I'm gonna stop the recording now.
Okay.
Just hang up and